everyone. Welcome back to Concept Wellbeing, where the intention is well. My name is Jade,
I'm Aileen.
and we're your hosts for today's episode. Welcome back. If you're new, hi. So we're gonna start off with our well-being moment. Aileen, I'll let you go first. Tell me your well-being moment.
So I feel like we've talked about this like 3 times now. I should have it down pat. I don't.
100%.
I would say my well-being moment is reconnecting to what is important and to myself after having a rough week. Being able to just sit down, relax, meditate, and think about what's really important is was my well-being moment. What about
Nice.
you?
Can I ask? I want to know what did you listen to anything while you were meditating or like how'd that go?
No, I was just like, I think I had like way too many thoughts going on, and I was
Mm.
just like irritated by all these little things that I was like, you need to chill out. Like, it's not that big of a deal. So, but I have used music in the past, which would have been nice, but I was just too lazy, let's be honest.
Yeah, you were like, I'm just gonna raw dog this meditation session, and yeah, I support it. I support it.
Yes.
My well-being moment. I feel like I just had a well-being moment, like maybe like 4 minutes ago. So, for those of y'all that don't know, we are recording visuals today, Aileen and I, and it's been a learning curve. I will say that. And so my well-being moment, even before all of this recording, was screaming, like screaming into something. And that could either be it's usually a pillow or like the abyss. Like sometimes you just want to like scream into the darkness and that's fine. And y'all didn't see it, but my second video just turned off and I'm internally, but when I was trying to figure it out, like maybe 5 minutes ago, and like the whole Wi Fi went out and everything like that, I screamed. And that's okay. And my therapist approved of it. And she was like, yeah, if that's it's a healthy way for you to get out your emotions. So my well being moment is screaming. And I feel like this is a very special episode that I'm going to give y'all my failing moment as well, which is this is not the first day that Aileen and I have tried to film visuals. We tried to do it yesterday. And I failed so miserably at it. But you know what? Today's a new day. And today we actually we have video, we have audio, so you know, each day is better than the next. So that's my little 2 for 1. So,
Hmm.
yes. Are you ready to move into our brand new segment for mental
Yes.
health?
Kick it
Yes.
off,
Okay.
Jade.
I'm excited. So, this entire series is going to be about mental health. I just have a couple of intro questions for Aileen. I just want to, just get the ball rolling. I want to hear about her history of mental health and stuff. But before we do that, let's, who is calling me? Let me tell you something. The universe does not want me to record this episode. At all. No one calls my phone, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, what is today? The Wi Fi went out. I'm literally on my hotspot. It's fine. It's okay. I'm
Just
okay. It's fine.
listen. It goes
It's cute.
perfectly with our topic. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about mental health and let's all take a collective deep breath together and then just breathe out. All right, now let's talk about mental health. So I want to start out with the definition of mental health, and then we'll get into our conversation. So mental health refers to a person's overall psychological well-being, which includes their emotional, cognitive, and social functioning. It encompasses our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and how we interact with others and the world around us. Mental health can be affected by a range of factors, including genetics, environment, and the experiences. Good mental health is characterized by the ability to cope with stress and adversity. maintain positive relationships, and have a fulfilling and productive life. Mental health conditions such as anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia can have a significant impact on a person's mental health and can be treated with therapy, medication, or a combination of both. So, that is what I understand mental health to be. Do you agree? Yes.
Yes, I
Okay,
think
cool.
it's a variety of things. So,
Agreed. Agreed. Okay,
but
how do
yeah,
you feel like your mental health is today?
um, it's okay today. It's not amazing. It's not sucky. It's like a just chill day today. So it's okay. What about you? After all of our issues, Jade.
How is my mental health? To be honest with you, it's it's not bad because I think I have you here to like laugh at the situation where it's just like this is so ridiculous for all the things that have went wrong that like it's only like I can only laugh at it type of situation and like I feel like your smile is always so like contagious. So whenever you're smiling, I'm like, okay, well, Aileen's smiling. So like get it together type of situation. So today my mental health is good. It's it's fine. We're chilling. We're indifferent. Like nothing's wrong. Nothing's like
Yep.
crazy great. So that's where I'm at right now with my mental health. How do you know when you're having a good mental health day or a bad mental health day?
I just feel it. And I think it can, there's multiple triggers, right? And it could be stress from work, it could be stress from home, it could be so many different factors, right? For me, I think work affects me a lot and like what's going on there, how things are running. It gets frustrating or the stress of not being able to do things. But also, I feel like you just witnessed it from moving back in with my family. It's I don't have my bubble anymore, right? And so it's like different things like that, right? So for me, you kind of just feel it. You get like a feeling of like you're unsettled, you're not completely content, or you get kind of anxious. So that's kind of how I know. But I've also gone through like a period of, I would say probably like 2 years ago, where I just didn't want to see people. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to talk to people. So it kind of just depends. But what about you? How do you kind of know?
I have questions before I
Okay.
answer. When did you start to like pay attention to it?
Probably, I would say like 2 or 3 years ago. I think I kind of got into like this funk that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know if I'm happy. And it was during that period where I was like, I don't want to see people. I don't want to go out. I just want to sit here and figure it out. And I couldn't figure it out and it was driving me nuts. Um, so I think that kind of triggered a lot of things. And that was one of the reasons why I kind of sparked into spirituality to kind of understand myself more compared to before, right? Where I was just like, okay, just get up, do whatever I need to do, go to bed, whatever. And then I started realizing like something's wrong. Like, I don't want to go out and talk to people or things like that. Like, I shouldn't be that way, right? Like, when your friend calls you, hey, let's go hang out. I'm like, I'm gonna stay home, right? So that's kind of when I started paying attention to it. It wasn't so much, it was like after college, in the beginning of my career, where I was just like, this is weird, right? And that's when
Yeah.
it kind of triggered it.
So before we graduated from undergrad, mental health, you were just chilling. You're like, life is good. I'm like walking through daisies, like I'm living my best life. And then
Pretty
once you
much.
graduated from undergrad, you were like, oh, well, no, 3 years ago. Oh, God bless. Let me not age us, but we did not
No, I
graduate
think
from
it
undergrad
was,
3 years ago. I forget.
no, I think it was, I was fine. Like, because I think everything moved. so in sync for both of us in a way, right? We were in college, we graduated, we had an internship, and then we had jobs, right? There's no time period where we like chilling, trying to figure ourselves out, any of that. It was just like bang, 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 you're an adult, start working, right? And that's kind of where I think it just hit me because it's like, okay, I'm checking all the boxes. I graduated, I have a full-time position, I'm trying to excel in this job, but I'm not really happy, right? And I didn't know who I was. I didn't know, and I would say I'm a completely different person from who I was in college and a recent graduate to who I am now, right? And I think, I mean, you would notice it, right? Because you've known me that long. Is I was
Yeah.
super shy, super timid back in the day. Like, even in my first job, right? I was like, oh, I can't upset people. I can't, like, say this or say that. And now I'm like, I don't care. Like, go ahead, call my boss, right? So
Yeah.
it is what it is. So I think you grow and you understand yourself more as you age. So yeah, like back then I didn't really know. It was fine. And it wasn't until I was like, is this really what I want to do with my life? Am I happy? Like, and that's when I started questioning everything. It was pro it was maybe it was like 4 years ago. I don't it was before COVID. And COVID's gonna be like 3 years now. So probably like 4 years ago.
Yeah, like I was doing the math and I was like, oh, actually, COVID started 3 years ago. We didn't graduate 3 years. I don't know.
Yeah. It
In my
flies.
head, I'm
Time
like, oh, we
flies. You're like,
just
when was it?
graduated from undergrad. No, we did not just graduate, but
Oh,
COVID did start 3 years ago. And so, did you have like a lot of time, like by yourself to like reflect and stuff? And I think maybe that kind of sparked, like, oh, like, how's my mental health?
I think I was like, that was an interesting time for me because the company I was working for was furloughed. So it was the first time since I was like 17 that I didn't have a job. I was like, what do I do with myself, right? And it was it was interesting because I think that was a lot of stress. I was like, how do you apply for unemployment? How do you do all this stuff? I don't know. But it was nice to, I essentially did nothing and it was great. Like, I would go on walks every day. I got, and one of my friends, like, we'd go walking outside, right? And we really got to know each other. It was great, right? And we're just like, we have nothing else to do. You're not sick. I'm not sick. Let's go walk outside, right? Can't do anything indoor. And this was like maybe it was months into it, not in the beginning. And so in the beginning, it was like, oh, let me try out a puzzle. Let me do all the stuff that I've never had time to do. So it was kind of a nice moment to kind of just try different things out. But it was a weird time during COVID.
Agreed. Yeah, no. And it sounds like you
Yes,
had
yes,
time to like sit with yourself and you're like, how am I feeling? Like the last time that you
yeah,
didn't have a job was when you were 17 years old. So, like, at that point, you weren't 17 years old. You have time to like sit with this new version of you. And now your mental health is like, it's called into question. So, I think that's interesting. You have time to reflect. So, yeah, COVID was an interesting
yes.
time for me as well, and my mental health as well. So, I I
We want to
didn't
hear it.
lose my job, although yeah, no, like I did not lose my job, but to be honest with you, I probably should have like taken a break because it was so much on my mental health during COVID. Like that was, I would say, probably the lowest point of my mental health. Like it was just like really overwhelming. Like every day I would wake up and it was just a lot for me. But I feel like COVID taught me to pay attention and like take care of myself a little bit more as well, where it's like, okay, you can't just like push through things, which is what I'm used to doing, is like, okay, we're just going to push through and we're going to get to the next thing. And I think I didn't know for my mental health that eventually you're going to hit a wall and you can't just keep on like crashing through these walls. Like eventually you're going to have to deal with what you're feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
I started therapy right before the pandemic. Like maybe like I want to say literally I had like one appointment with my therapist in person before we went into lockdown. So like it was literally right before COVID. And
Okay.
I think it was very helpful for me to be able to have someone to talk through because it was very COVID for me was a very transitional time in my life. I was also like in a different city. I ended up moving cities during the pandemic. Like it was a whole thing for me and it was very overwhelming. But um, I learned how to take care of my mental health and the importance of like making time and space for yourself so that your mental health is in a good place. Because when I'm not in a good place, which like I learned like what my highs and my lows are. Like my lows are very, I don't want to be low again. Like my whole existence honestly is spent trying to avoid like a low like mental health day, because when it's low
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not just like a day. It's like before during COVID, it was like it was a couple of months where it was just like, oh, my mental health is like sitting on bricks. Like this is a lot for me to deal with, and you're not used to deal. Honestly, like I felt like I wasn't used to having to take care of my mental health. It was just like just keep going, and COVID was like you have to stop. Like you, as
Mm-hmm.
mentally strong as I thought my brain was, it will sit you down, and it sat me down, and I had a whole that's during COVID, that was the first time I learned to scream out loud, and my therapist was like, good job, Jade, good job for you screaming, because I was like, it was either I scream, that was the only option, at that point. I was like, I have to. I like drove up to like the top of a mountain at like 3 a.m. My parents thought I was insane, because I was living with my parents at that time and they can like see every time like someone would leave and someone would like come. Um, and I drove up to a mountain one night because I was just feeling so overwhelmed with like my brain. And I like screamed from the top of a mountain. And it was great. It was liberating, top tier, 100% would do it again. Um, but yeah, I learned about my mental health. I learned how to kind of deal with it. But I think therapy has been really helpful for me in learning like coping mechanisms. So, do you have any like, let's say you're having like a low mental health day? Do you have any like go to coping mechanisms?
I think my thing is it's really just going back and remembering everything I'm grateful for. Because it could be like all these little things that that are going on, right? That affect our mental health. And for me, what's beneficial is to step back and say, okay, this is happening right now. Is this forever? No, right? And then going back to thinking, what am I grateful for? Right? Because in the moment, I think we all know we're grateful for something, right? It could be your family, it could be whatever, your dog or anything, right? But if you kind of step back from that moment, right? And just not it's going to affect us in some way. We're not, right? Our environment affects us, but I think if we can put it into perspective, it helps me, right? And going back and saying like, and another thing is, I know we just finished this segment, but I think everything kind of happens for a reason, or we're if something is it's either going to be a lesson that we're taught, it's a challenge that we need to overcome, right? So even if the situation sucks, I ask myself, what are you meant to learn from it, right? So, for instance, stress levels were high at one of my jobs, right? You knew my old boss. And for me, the way I worked for her for 3 years was I'm supposed to learn something from her. And even today, if I were to see her, I would thank her because I did learn a lot from her,
Did you? That's
which
really big of you to say
I
that.
did. And that's the thing is like in the moment, I hated my life. I was looking for a new
Yeah,
job.
no.
I didn't want to go to work. Like it was the whole thing. But if I go back today and I compare myself to someone that was in my role prior to me, I know more than they do. Why? Because I was forced to do that stuff. I was forced to learn, right? And the way she managed us was harsh. And she made people cry. I was like, she's never gonna make me cry, right? And I always said, and I hated going in there and being wrong. So I'd make myself learn prior to going in there because I didn't want her to say I was wrong. So, you know what I mean? Like, she forced me to learn. And yeah, it was a crappy 3 years, but I came out of it learning a lot. And I can say I now know how to handle a difficult person in the workplace versus a lot of people our age do not know how, right?
True.
And
Very
like,
true. Yeah.
even today, we'll go out and someone will question us and be like, well, no, well, tell me what the regulation says. I can do this or I can't do that. And like some people will rise and come back combative versus I'm like, oh, let me check the regulation and we'll get back to you. I already know the regulation says you can't do that. But it's calming down and then coming back and be like, these are the facts. Now you have to do what I say. Thank you. Right? So
Because you're
things like
used
that,
to
I've learned a lot.
being it's because you were used to being in like a high stress environment that like you feel like you know how to deal with stress now.
Yes, yes, especially in the workplace. And that's where I think, everything that's frustrating, right? In the moment, we're going to react, but it's important to be able to control your emotions. And it depends what the situation is, right? But can you go back and quickly say, either, okay, what am I grateful for? This is a crappy situation, but I have so much to be grateful for. Or I'm supposed to go through this situation. What am I supposed to be learning from it or gaining from it, right? Because either you're getting something awesome or you're going through a crappy situation, but you come out stronger and you learn something from it, right? So that's kind of my approach. But it doesn't work for everyone, but it works for me.
I don't want to have to be, how do I say this? I don't want to have to like experience the lows to appreciate the highs. Like I
Yeah, yeah,
like I don't want it to have to be, and this is just like my personal opinion on things, but like I don't want it to have to be like, oh, I suffered and so I can experience this. I'm like, I'd rather not suffer. And like I've met your manager. That was suffrage, okay? That was the great suffrage, okay? Of whatever year that we were intern. I was like, when you got assigned to that person, I was like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna send our thoughts and prayers out to Aileen because I'd have quit, I'd have left because I don't want to I don't want to do that to myself. I don't want to have to experience this lady just dog walking me because, honestly, we would have gotten into a fight because I'm like, you can't be the same height as me and be talking to me like that. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, be so for real. What? No, no, ma'am. But I just feel like I would have tapped out for my mental health. I would have tapped out. I did tap out. I left the internship. I mean, the internship was done, but I was just like, it's time for me to go. But I don't want to have to be like, okay, I experienced this so that I can appreciate this. Like, I just want my life to be very like fairy pixie dust. Like, life is nice and we're just on the up and up. I don't want to have to experience like sad stuff and have to deal with like a manager that's like, honestly, what's the word I'm looking for? A tyrant. Cuz she was on one. That was like Napoleon syndrome almost. Like you can't she had the same situation as Napoleon, I feel like, where it was just like she was trying to prove herself and it was unnecessary. And then she was just like a jerk to everyone. And I feel like it like came out through work. But for mental health, I think I would have tapped out. And I have tapped out from work for my mental health. Like I have had to do that because at one point it was either me or my job. And so
I feel
I'm
like
going to
we need
choose
a
me.
whole episode on this.
I do think we do spend a lot of time at work, and so work is going to really affect our mental health, like regardless. Like I know that if
Right?
things aren't good at work, then like it kind of will mess up my day. And to be honest with you, most of my stress comes from work. Like if I had to pinpoint it,
100%.
um yeah, like most of my stress will come from work or just like me in my own head making up scenarios, which is a different conversation for a different time. But yeah, we will. Maybe our next episode will be about work and mental health, and then we'll have an entire series about work as well. But mental health, my mental health history, I. I don't know. I feel like when I was little, my mental health was chilling, but I feel like I've always been a little bit anxious. Like I do think I've always had like an anxious spirit about me, and that's just I think it like comes down to I just wanted to make sure that like I was setting myself up for the future. And so the anxiety, I think anxiety comes from like looking further in the future. I think depression is like you're like focused on the past. Anxiety is focused on the future. And I've always been like future focused. And so since I was like, I think I was, I think I was in like second grade and my teacher was like, talking to my mother. Ready? She was talking to my mom and was like, she's really concerned about like the future. Like, you might want to calm her down, like, type of situation. And I don't know, I've just always been concerned about the future. Like, I was not an anxious second grader. Like, I was really an anxious second grader. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, I can't do long division. I was so stressed about long division. To this day, I can't do long division. But I was so stressed out. Like, I was like, oh, this is a lot for me. Like, I know there's a test coming. Like, this is a lot for me. So I've always been like a little bit anxious, a little high strung, if you will. Um, and so that's just carried on into like just the way that I live. And so my entire life is like spent trying to calm my nervous system and being like, Jade, don't be anxious about the future. It's going to be fine. So I have a lot of tips on how I've dealt with it, and we'll get into that. I feel like we have an entire segment planned on anxiety toolboxes. Aileen is like, yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get in. It's so nice to
I'm
like be able to
excited to
record a
hear that.
podcast and see you. Like I feel like this is, I don't know, way more exciting type of situation.
Am
But
I like way too expressive? You're just like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
no, like no, I see it. Like instead of me having to be like, I can like see you shaking your head and like you're like, yeah, like you're like taking in what I'm saying. So I do like the video recording, even if we don't put it out into the universe. Like at least we have it as our first recording. So this is exciting. What's your like go to if your mental health is
I would
like
say
sitting on bricks?
I think I'm still trying out different ones. It's not just one set one,
Got it.
but
No,
we'll see. Maybe
I
with
feel the
your
same
little
way.
toolbox, you're gonna enlighten me.
Listen, not only do I have a toolbox, my entire wall, like the back of my door in my apartment, is an entire wall of like things to do if I feel anxious. Like that's my like toolbox. Like I'll go there. I have to like, it's a whole thing for me because I have to like figure out my emotion and that which is a whole different situation where it's like okay I had to learn what emotions feel like and like be able to identify it and then like be able to identify the thought like it's a negative thought. What kind of negative thought is it? And then, depending on the negative thought, I'm like, okay, like what, how am I going to build around this to like protect my mental health? Like, am I going to go do something outside that's like good for me? Like, maybe I just need some sun. Like, maybe I'm sad and like maybe I should yell into something written on the board as well. You know, maybe I should just go eat something. Like, it's a whole thing. So I'm excited to go through that with y'all because
I'm
that has
excited.
been a thing. I'm
I'm
excited to
excited to
edit
learn
this
about it.
podcast because I feel like half of it has like gone in and out. So I feel like the things that you were saying is going to be news to me when I'm editing this podcast. So because I swear it's been going in and out. My internet really dog walked me, like not the hotspot. Ugh, whatever, it's fine. So we'll see. You know what? We tried.
Fingers
I tried.
crossed.
Fingers crossed. And if it's not good, then you know, not everything can be perfect. I'm so sorry. But do we have any final words of wisdom from Aileen to wrap up this first episode of our new series?
I would just say I'm excited about this new little series or segment. I think it's going to be very enlightening for myself.
I think so.
So I'm being kind of selfish, but I think it'll be good. It'll be good to hear about our experiences and kind of how we face them. And I want to hear about your tools.
I feel like that might have to be our next episode then. We'll just go into Jade's
I think
toolbox
so.
and discuss what I
That's
have written down on the wall. And now that we have visuals, no, I'm not going to show y'all the back of my wall because that's going to be too much. But I will write it down so that I can read everything that's written down on my wall for y'all and all of
okay.
the tools that my therapist has given me to figure out my anxiety, because that is what I've been clinically diagnosed with, is moderate to severe anxiety, in case you were curious. Cute. So, yeah.
There we go.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up this episode?
Nope. Just that I'll talk to you guys all next week.
Okay, lovely. Okay, well, thank you, Aileen, for being a great sport while we figure this out. Really appreciate it. Hopefully, things turn out well for this episode. But thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends or honestly, whoever you think will resonate with this episode. But we hope that you have a good day or a good night, and we hope that you are well. Bye.
Bye.
That's when you say bye. Oh, I was like, Aileen, you're not going to say bye?